a lot of people get married young.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like you're saying, by the time they're 40 and they're done having kids and they're kind of getting their independence back a little bit, that's when they start, oh man, I kind of wish I did this. And, you know, a lot of them do end up leaving their relationships and going out and figuring out themselves,
right?
Learning who they are, because they never got that point in their life to go out and discover themselves. I think it's a huge disadvantage to people.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Weapon X Holsters, quality handmade Kydex holsters made right here in Southern Utah. You can stop by the store, 1397 West Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Lake Podcast. Back in the vault today. This is our first week with a new background. So Mallory and Blake upgraded the studio a little bit, made some changes. We've got some lighting in here. We got some different backgrounds. We're pretty jacked about it. So if you like it, let us know. This is episode 104. I've got a buddy on today that is doing big things in Southern Utah. He's building a lot of good things in Southern Utah, and we're going to jump right in and talk about it. This is Marcus Zitting. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, this is, it's always fun to get on with people I know because it's like a different dynamic.
Yep.
I don't know, but like I wouldn't say I don't like it when it's people I don't know.
Yeah.
But like we start talking right at the beginning and I'm already like, dude, we're already vibing. Let's just start.
Yeah, let's just roll.
Yeah.
Turn the cameras on. Yeah, and I mean, I know how busy you are. It's like we've known each other for a couple of years, but it's usually like through text or call.
Right.
Hey, you know, because we, you know, for your listeners, like we do business together, send clients your way to get vault doors or whatever. And yeah, it's usually like through text or call. I don't ever really see it that often, but.
Well, that's what I was telling Amanda. I was like, yeah, Marcus is coming on. And I was like, you know, I think I've only talked to him in person like 5 times.
Yeah, not that many.
but I've texted him a million.
Yeah, exactly. I actually see Amanda more than you.
You're right.
That's and she's awesome, dude. You got a rock star wife.
I
love her hustle, dude. That's awesome.
I tell everyone, I'm like, there's a lot of crazy girls out there. There's a lot of crazy guys. There's a lot of crazy people.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I must have been some like saint in heaven to deserve her, dude, because she's a hustler. She's extremely, if there's as close as you can get to no drama as her.
Yeah. Low maintenance.
Like she's got great friends. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't know what I did to deserve her. I guess I'll just put it like that. She hates it when I take her on here. She's like, you put me on a pedestal and I'm not that cool. I'm like, dude.
That's what makes her so great.
Right. I'm like, you don't even know.
Yeah. That's part of the reason like you talk about her, because she's low maintenance and she doesn't think she's belongs up there, but she does, you know?
Yeah. And she doesn't give herself enough credit, I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah,
but
dude, going through medical school is no easy task. Like that's not for me, you know? Like,
me neither.
I'm not an institution guy. Like I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get out and start working.
Right. Anybody that goes through like medical school, hats off to him. You know, takes a special person, first of all, to be in the medical field in general. You know,
yeah.
You talk about like how you're queasy with a needle, and she's like seeing like kids with broken femurs. It's like gosh,
cutting people open.
Couldn't do that.
Yeah. Like she's had like 1 or 2 stories in our marriage where I'm like, dude, you gotta stop talking.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
I don't like that.
Yeah, not fun.
And she like the surgery part of it, I think is even because she's like her degree's in family medicine,
right?
Really, but she's in the orthopedic trauma surgery, right? And so it's not even just like you're replacing someone's knee. It's like someone that has shattered their knee and it's half sticking out of their leg.
Yeah.
Like that's what she's seeing.
That's rough stuff. I did right out of high school, I did firefighting in the summer for wildland, and in the winter I was ski patrol for Bryan Head for 2 seasons, and you know people get messed up.
I imagine
stupid stuff, but it was always the kids. You know, when a kid got injured, it was like that sucked.
Yeah, and
you know you roll up to them. And they think you're Superman just because you have like a medical jacket on. I'm like, I'm just an EMT. My whole job is just to get you off this hill so other people can keep snowboarding.
You're like, I'm getting you to Superman.
Right. I'm not that guy. Amanda's down the hill. That's where you're going.
Yeah, they'll take care of you, right? Well, dude, we've got a ton of stuff I think we can talk about. Yeah. And even I think like I've got 4 subjects in my brain that I think we could talk over an hour and a half on each one. So
for sure.
I don't know how long this is going to go. Like I told you, we try to be about an hour and a half. I'm just going to see where we end up. but I'll kind of let you give us a little background and kind of the start of your story. But really, like, even the last 5 years is like, I mean, I guess that's when I've known you, so I would have the most input on the last 5 years. But let's just see where this goes. I don't know. Maybe we won't even get that far. Maybe we'll have to episode 2 you.
We might delve into somewhere along the way. That's fine.
Okay, I'll let you take it over.
All right. Well, I grew up a son of a builder, or framer, and so kind of grew up blue collar worker, learned a couple different construction trades. He was a workaholic. I mean, never met a guy that outworked him, but he was also played hard too. He always seemed to make fun out of work too. Saturdays were my favorite days at home because until I was a teenager, but growing up like that, I looked forward to that. Spend some time with my dad. And as I got older and he got busier, it ended up him just giving me a list of stuff to do on Saturday, and I didn't see much of him. But growing up, that was like a highlight, was being able to rub elbows with him, and he did everything himself. Growing up, as soon as he got too busy, we talk about bandwidth, and he would start to pay people to do certain stuff, whereas we would do everything when I was a kid.
Dude, so, I draw so many parallels to that.
Yeah,
because it was the same thing as like dad's working all the time.
Yeah,
and then the weekends it was dad waking you up and saying, "Let's go."
Yeah,
and so even if it's just in the yard, right?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I'm the second oldest in my family. I have an older sister, and so we definitely got to see the progression of my parents and see him kind of, from very humble beginnings to build an empire. That's kind of where he left off, and so it was good for me to see that. Some of my younger siblings kind of just have always seen the busy businessman side of stuff, and not so much the country boy that would take you fishing on a Saturday, or
Well, I've seen pictures of his house. And that thing, I mean, I've only seen pictures of the outside. Yeah. And that thing's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just one of a kind amazing.
Yeah, it is a very unique design.
Yeah.
Haven't seen too many other houses. I think it probably looks more similar to some of the stuff up in Draper, up against the mountain.
Okay.
Some of those kind of manor looking houses, but he blended a lot of looks with that home, and it turned out
I love
nice.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, on pictures. I haven't been there.
Yeah, and we built that.
I bet.
And everyone in the family had helped on that, and so that's
cool.
It's cool to go see that. I like the summer is great, because my mom's kind of a green thumb, and so the yard looks impeccable, and there's just so much space, so much space to fill with plants and trees, and so it's a beautiful home. He did a good job, and it was interesting because he had to put a tower crane on that, and not too many residential homes have tower cranes to assemble them, and then it's kind of fun to have that there.
Now correct me if I'm wrong, but did he pass away recently?
Yeah, recently. He died, a year and a half ago from COVID pneumonia.
Okay, actually, I thought it was like, I was telling Blake, I think it was a year ago, so.
Yeah, it was kind of sudden, We thought we were out of the woods because it was the third wave, right?
Okay.
So I had it 3 times, and he got it for the first time on the 3rd round. I think it was Omicron was the variant.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but anyways, just took him out, man. It was wild. It took... First, I had an uncle or great uncle that passed from it, and then my grandfather passed a couple weeks later, and then a couple weeks later, my dad passed from COVID pneumonia. So it was pretty brutal for the Zitting family. Yeah,
that's rough. What was that? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, let's unpack that if you want.
I mean, what was that like, dude? I just hear how you talk about your dad. It's like how I view my grandpa. Yeah, like he's untouchable, right? And we talked a little bit about my grandpa Sam. He's 80 years old. He's still cranking it out, right?
Awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And you build this person up to where they're unbreakable,
right? They're invincible, right?
And so what was that like going through that as the oldest son?
It was pretty wild. I mean, his name was Sam too, so it's kind of funny. There's another parallel, but I didn't have a great relationship from probably 16 to 27. Okay, and so I felt like when he passed, it was. I'd already kind of made peace with not having him super prevalent in my life. Sure. The way I described the grief of that, it was like I've been missing him for 10 years, before he passed. And so it was hard for me, but mostly because of what I saw it do to my siblings and my mom. It was really tough to see the people I loved get damaged like that and have kind of the rug pulled out from under them. Not that I didn't mourn too, but it was just I was more comfortable with
Sure.
with that loss than I think most of the people in my family. But it was impactful for a lot of people. You know, it wasn't just my family. You know, he was kind of a giant in the community there and all over Southern Utah, really. So it's kind of cool. Like when he did pass, like the people that showed up to support, you know, just a small little church out there. And I think they said they had like 6 or 7 private jets that flew in.
Wow.
So, and out to the airport there. And so and they did a whole viewing in one of the hangars because the church building there was too small to house them all.
Wow.
So they did like a TV set up in a hangar for some people to be able to just watch it there and then fly out. So, when we went to the burial part of the ceremony, you know, a bunch of jets were taken off, which I thought was cool. 'Cause he was a pilot.
Is cool.
He had a jet.
He was?
Yeah. He had gotten his pilot's license probably 8 years prior to his death, and he, you know, started in single engine and then worked up to flying a jet. So
that's cool.
They had both. By they, I mean his partners and his brothers.
Okay.
His brothers are his partners.
So he was kind of in that world already with people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he's, you know, people like Jacobson and big contractors like that, you know, they're traveling in jets usually when they go to check out a new job, or, you know, he went bird hunting with a lot of guys like that. You know, they'd all fly up to North Dakota and bird hunt and then fly home.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that's part of what grew his business so much, was being pilots. They could, you know, he could do jobs all over the country and be home on a weekend, or be home at night, you know, even
at night. Yeah.
You know,
Just jump on the plane.
Yeah. You could go check on a job in Denver or Los Angeles or wherever he was, San Diego, and be home. So that's a huge benefit to business. Like, you're going to be, you know, spread out.
Well, dude, I know what you're talking about with your dad. I mean, I was the same way with mine. It's like when my dad had committed suicide, I knew it would happen one day. And so like I had come to, you know, I don't even know what the right way to say it is. I knew it would happen.
You were braced. You're bracing yourself, right? You knew it was coming down the pipe. With my dad, I was definitely was not expecting it.
Right. I just mean like I'd already processed that. Right. Like
you'd gone through the mourning process kind of like preemptively leading up to that time.
And it was the same, like watching my mom and my sister, and how my you know, I have 3 older brothers and a little sister. And so watching my brothers kind of process it, and they had relationships with him. I was the only one that didn't. Right. And so like just where I was saying, where I've already kind of processed this, you know, it was, I can understand what you're saying. Where we jumping? Let's jump, schooling. Let's talk about schooling. 'Cause this is something I see you, like I see you, you're a builder, you're a family man. You've got a wife, you've got a kid now. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're ripped, like you're working out, like you're a good looking dude, all this stuff. And then I find out you were a DJ. Yeah. And so tell me the background of that and how you got into that.
Yeah. I mean, went to high school and just public high school, graduated there, and just got right into the workforce at that point. But music was always a passion of mine, and I got into electronic dance music, and that was a passion of mine. And I was like, I want to delve into how to make it, and how to produce it, and then play it for people and actually be the guy up there. And so I decided to I played around with it in my living room type thing. I was like, man, this is some technical stuff. And like Mallory was talking about that earlier, like it's very technical to make that, and you got to learn software and hardware and get into music theory and all this stuff. So I was like, wow, this is way over my head. I don't have a mentor. I'm just gonna go to school for it. So I went to Salt Lake for 6 months and just learned it. And half of it was basically learning music production, and half of it was learning sound design. And sound design is, making the sounds within the music. And so those kind of go hand in hand. And then you can go whatever direction you want with that. You can become more of like technical side, where you're backstage, kind of like what Mallory does, where you can get into learning instruments, making music, producing music, and then DJing it, performing it live. But all three of those things can be separate too. There's people that just produce, there's people that just DJ. But the fun part of it is to perform, right? Okay.
Not for me, but sure.
Yeah, exactly. Mallory's the type that likes to, be the tech, right behind the scenes. And
like I can't even talk her into coming on an episode.
Yeah, exactly.
She's been a part of 103 of them.
Yeah. So performing was the fun part for me. So definitely got more into that side of it. While I was up there, played in Salt Lake at a few venues, and then moved back here. I was dating Ashley at the time. Okay. And that was hard to do long distance. she wasn't a big fan of it, obviously. So came back here. That's pretty much when I got into being a builder. You know, I knew a bunch of trades just growing up, and I got back and I had kind of a point in my life where I'm like, what am I going to do? You know, like I've got potential to be a DJ and go that route with my life. And I wanted to do that. But, you know, Ashley was like, that's not the lifestyle I want to live. You know, it's basically a modern rock star. You're exposed to a lot of temptation, a lot of, you know, can go really south if you're not super disciplined. And at 23, like, it's like, how disciplined is anybody at 23 or 24, you know? So, like, bless her heart for kind of helping me have that reality check. But the other side of that was more of my business brain kicked in. And I looked at how saturated the market was for DJs and producers. And, you know, dance music was blowing up at that point. And you had people like Skrillex and Deadmau5 that got into it at the beginning, and they became very wealthy and very well known pretty much out of the gate. But those days were long gone. You know, you really had to grind, be different, have insane marketing, have money. You know, it took all that to kind of get into that. And not to say you couldn't do it without all that stuff, but it would just be a 10-year process, you know? And so I looked at it as, what can I do right now that's going to make a living and where I can have a future with Ashley, you know, settle down, have a family eventually. And that was being a builder. So that's kind of the direction I went.
Okay.
And then DJ kind of just became, being a DJ or producer kind of just became a hobby.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So that it didn't take a back seat, I wouldn't say. It just became kind of a side hobby, hustle.
Became something fun to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is important for everybody.
That's what I was going to say. That might have been a good move.
Yeah. And a lot of people like, you're a builder and like, how do those two, you know, just like you said, like, how do those worlds collide? And that's kind of how it panned out. But,
I mean, building's in your blood. So,
yeah,
I mean,
building's in my pedigree. So like that was obviously like, I wouldn't say the easy decision, but it was the one that made the most sense.
Yeah.
And so, and I think it's, you know, people say dream big, you know, and I think that you should dream big, but I think that it's important for people to look in the mirror and say, what's logical?
Yeah.
what's my best option for success?
Well, I think that's the first step, and then dream big. Right. So figure out what avenue can take you there.
Yeah. And a lot of people just dream big and they're dreamers.
Right.
And they never really break it down into simple steps and like, what's the most logical? What's my highest rate of success? So that's kind of why I went that direction, and here I am.
Now so how long have you been building then?
I mean, my first tool belt, I was 4. But,
well, I mean, like
professionally, I was a project manager for a couple of years, and then got my generals when I was 25, general contracting license when I was. I started getting it when I was 24, and then ended up getting it when I was 25.
Awesome.
And have just, you know, been a builder since. So.
And I guess we should mention what your company name is.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Atlas Homes.
So where'd that come from?
I'm big into Greek mythology.
Okay.
Greek, Roman, kind of a history guy. That's another one of my passions. And, just what that stands for, you know, Atlas, holding the world on his shoulders, building strong things, you know, and, it made sense. It has a good ring to it, and, it's good for marketing.
Yeah,
so
I know. I love it. Your logo looks really good. Like, all of it does.
Yeah, the branding kind of just fit. I had a couple other options that I was looking into, and the branding just wasn't there. And everything in southern Utah is either Red Rock this or, you know, like Intermountain. It's like I wanted to be different. I wanted to have a different name. So kind of went that direction.
Cool. Do you have like a DJ name? How does that work?
Just my name.
It's just your name.
Yeah.
You know,
I've tried an alias at one point, but it's just, I don't know.
Didn't really catch on.
It's a lot of it's just kind of annoying when you're trying to do flyers and, you know, send your PNG file to a different promoter. And it's just like, just do my name in this font. Just
this is who I am.
Yeah.
Love it. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah. And one thing you start to realize is like people recognize your name faster than your alias. And so like if I played in Salt Lake or whatever, people would see that on a flyer, I'd be like, oh, I know who that is. Like I'm going to go check that out. Or a lot more friends know that you're going to be playing there if they see your name versus your alias. Cause you know, trying to remember that.
Sure.
So
well, let me back up. Let me back up more to some DJ stuff. So
yeah.
I was going to switch gears into building, but I'm not ready.
Okay.
So how long have you been doing the DJing stuff? Do you consider yourself like doing it professionally right now? I know you're kind of side gigging it, but you still do events, right?
Yeah, I do events, but it's, you know, 3 or 4 a year.
Okay.
So it's just a hobby. Yeah.
Sure.
Like I said, I decided to kind of like let that be a hobby versus taking it, being a professional. So I get asked, I turn it down half the time.
Yeah,
because I'm just
that's
busy,
that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, I get asked to do a lot of gigs and it's like just doesn't pencil out, or I'm just too busy, or now that I have a kid, it's like, do I want to be gone this whole weekend? And so yeah, it's more of just a hobby, and I do it when I can.
Yeah. How many have you done? How many events have you done?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, like hundreds, like 20,
no,
like
probably 30 or 40.
Okay.
Yeah, that I would consider an event.
Got you. I mean, it just looks so entertaining. Like I'm not at like a concert.
Yeah.
Mosh pit jumping up. Like I've been to a few concerts, and my wife would go down and like be a part of the crowd, and I'm just
She'd
like
be throwing elbows, man.
I'd just be sitting up in the stands like, yeah, come find me when you're done. You know, like we did when we were dating. I think it was Yellow Card came to
Fun.
SUU, and we went to that.
They went to Dixie too. I saw them at Dixie. That was fun. That was probably 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we've been married just over 10, almost 11.
Yeah,
so
and I loved punk rock growing up, so that was cool to like have them come to St. George.
Yeah.
And I've been to lots of punk rock concerts. I'm going to a festival this year of punk rock. So
are you?
Yeah, it's not. I don't watch just dance music. I'm pretty well versed as far as like, I still go to rock concerts. I still go to whatever, all over the place, country.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Did you guys do? Or you're going to Morgan Wallen?
We were going to go to Morgan Wallen. He actually canceled.
Okay, so were you part of that?
Stops. Yeah,
that's a bummer, man.
Yeah, that was crappy. And dude, his tickets, I could not believe how expensive his tickets were. I was baffled by that.
What venue?
It was
in
Austin, Texas, which was been awesome to go there and see him. So we were really pumped on it, and it was kind of. I made a deal with Ashley for her push present. I was like, I'll take you to whatever live music event you want to go to. That's when she picked, and I saw tickets. I was like, oh shit, what did I get myself into? So we ended up getting a refund for those and just bagging it, and we'll catch him another time. But I guess he's starting to have voice issues because he's overbooked.
Jason and Mike Mike got tickets for him in Phoenix, and it's like in a week or two.
Yeah.
And so now he's back on. So now they're going.
Yeah, I think he was trying to take like a 2-month break or something like that, just to give his vocal cords a.
Yeah, that's a crazy thought that like that's a thing. Yeah. And like I can understand if you're like screamo guy. I mean like the Used.
Yeah.
And so Bert, what's his last name? The lead singer of the Used. Anyway, the lead singer of the Used had that same issue.
Yeah, a lot of them do. And
we went and saw him in Salt Lake. Jason and I went and saw him in Salt Lake after. Like it was right after COVID. They actually moved the venue outside, like right when COVID was kind of calming down. And we were all like, dude, how's he going to sing these songs? Like he can't scream. Like he can't.
Yeah. That's a tough, touring is hard on you.
I would imagine.
It's hard on everybody in the band or in the group that you're with, but
and hell, the Used are like 40 something now.
I can imagine how used up his vocal cords are, but
heck, they might be 50.
Bert McCracken?
McCracken, that's what it is.
What a last name, dude. That's awesome.
Well, he's a Utah kid.
You better have like octopus tattooed on him or something. That's a cool last name.
He grew up in Lehigh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't know if like all the band members, I assume they all did too, but his parents lived next door to my aunt. And so like,
I did not know that.
Yeah. And so they lived up in Lehigh, or not, it's Highland is where they lived. And they don't have like fences and stuff around most of the homes up there. They're just like your grass yard just feeds into that grass yard. And so
easy to run from cops there, huh?
Yeah. But you could just like look across the little backyard and it was like Bert's house, right?
That's
like
awesome.
He wasn't there a lot, but there was a couple times he was there. And I don't know. It's not like I knew him or met him or anything, but it was kind of cool. And so when we watched that Salt Lake one, he's like, Utah, it's so good to be back. And I think he lives in Australia now. Huh. And so anyway, it was just for me, dude. So I said like, I'm not a concert guy.
Yeah.
I loved that. So it was Coheed and the Used.
Yeah, that'd be killer.
And I didn't know the other band.
It was the
like,
amphitheater up there?
What's that?
Was it the amphitheater, the venue?
It was. Jason would know.
The complex, maybe.
Gallivan?
The complex.
Yeah, complex.
The complex.
Utah lacks good venues.
Yeah.
The amphitheater there's not bad, but that's a dream of mine is to do like some type of an outdoor venue here. I've done during COVID we did for a pretty well known dance label called Anjuna Beats, but we did like an outdoor shuffle dance thing with Zion as the background.
Oh,
and
nice.
Did a cool 360 video. I had like a professional film crew from LA come out and film that, but it just got my entrepreneur juices going. I was like, man, because some of the best venues I've been to have been open air.
Okay.
The Gorge in Washington is a good example of that. Red Rocks in Colorado is another good example where you can kind of just be out in the middle of nowhere, not have sound issues, complaints, and have a cool backdrop.
Yeah.
And do camping and whatever.
Well, that's like the whole allure to like Tuacahn, right? You're like in the canyon and stuff. Right. Dude, that's a great idea.
I wish Tuacahn would like do more live music there. They're pretty stiff on like who they allow to come perform there, but
yeah.
Something up in Kolob or something that's overlooking.
That's what I was gonna say, even Snow Canyon, something like that.
Because that's part of what makes a town awesome.
I was going to say, hell, dude, you can do it at your house.
Yeah.
You've got a great backdrop at your house.
Yeah, that's true. On the roof. I just finished my rooftop lounge. And so.
Oh, nice.
Oh, man, that's awesome over there. That's like spend most of my time over there now.
Yeah. Okay, let me switch into, that kind of leads us into building. So
let's do it.
Let's talk about your house, dude. So what was that like, building your own house? How long you'd been married when you guys started that process?
Just a year.
Yeah, I'd say it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think it's. If you have twins or you build a house is like the biggest strains on a marriage.
Oh, for sure.
So tell me what that was like for you. And not
the last 3 years of my life have been nuts.
I bet, dude.
It feels like I've been on a blender half the time.
I was going to say.
I'm just trying to, make it work.
Just been in fast forward, trying to hold on.
My life got supercharged like 3 years ago. As soon as I got married, everything kind of just like sped up. But it's because I packed so much into like so many pivotal choices into just a couple of years, like getting married, building a house, having a kid. We're 30, so we wait a little bit to get married and to have a kid. So I kind of felt like we just needed to get that going quick. Had the means to do it, so why not just do it all right now?
Did you always want kids?
Yeah, I always wanted kids. I was definitely pretty nervous to have a kid.
Sure.
It's the biggest responsibility I think a person can take on because it's the butterfly effect. You have a kid and you don't know. Based on your parenting and the environment you bring them up, you could either be raising a Stalin or you could be raising an Elon Musk or you could, you don't know. And so I think it's a responsibility a lot of people take for granted. And part of the reason they take it for granted is because they have them so young or on accident, And so I wanted to be very prepared. I wanted to be able to bring my kid into a world where he had the means, he had the education, and I could die at the end of my life and be like, I gave him the best opportunity I possibly could. And so
was waiting later part of, was that kind of, I know you had to wait to find Ashley. I know that, but
I dated Ashley for 6 years before marrying her, and she wanted to have kids a year in. And it was definitely, I know that you were the same way. I was definitely the one pumping the brakes. Like, all right, let's make sure I'm checking all the boxes off first before I have a kid. And I think a big part for me was I had a big shift when I was 26. They say that the male brain is done developing at 25, 26. And I definitely felt that, like a big shift in my thinking, my maturity, and the way I viewed the world and viewed relationships and family and all that stuff. It had a big shift. And so I'm glad I got to that point before I had a kid.
Right.
Our parents were kids having kids, and bless their hearts for doing as good of a job as they did. We're all kind of a product of their situation. And I recognized that and wanted to just make sure I was fully ready. I'm more about quality over quantity. I grew up in a big family, lots of kids, and I'm not trying to compete with numbers, it seems like where I grew up, it's almost like that competition, how many wives and kids you could have. But so for me, it was, quality over quantity, probably do 2 or 3 and call it good. And just be able to spend a lot of time with them, take them on trips, be able to travel with them. As soon as my mom had twins after me. So it was like, as soon as the twins were born, it was like, no more family trips. It's just too hard. Logistically, it's too expensive. How do you pack up that many kids and all their stuff to go on a trip, especially back then before there was vehicles that were well suited for it,
Yeah, I hope I never have to find out.
Right. You never want the Sprinter van. Yeah. So I don't know. I think big families are awesome, and I'm glad that I have one. I love all my siblings, and I love that, they're all having kids right now, which has been super cool. I felt like I waited so long that I was maybe going to have, they were all going to have their kids before me, but luckily it worked out. We're all having kids together.
That's cool.
Like my little brother had his little girl 2 days before us. We had the same due date, which was awesome.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
so you're talking to like the same age.
Yeah, we found out we were having a kid the same weekend and announced it to the family the same day. It was pretty funny. And then my little sister had a kid a month after us, and my other little sister had a kid 6 months or 7 months before us. So we have 4 cousins that are all going to grow up together, which is awesome.
That's cool. Are they in St. George?
No, most of them are out in Arizona.
Okay.
So we travel out there. We travel there a lot more now just because of that. And
just family.
because my dad's gone now, and just feel like I need to have a bigger role with them and be there for my siblings and my family more. So, but it's awesome to have a bunch of kiddos. But that's what I'm talking. My life did a freaking 360, man. I went from traveling, partying, being selfish, being reckless to dad mode.
Yeah.
Uncle mode, I
mean, that's a shift that I think it was like, I think it's good that you go through that, because there's a lot of people that when you hit 40 or 30, now it's like, I never did anything. And like, I mean, I never really did anything, but I see there's a lot of divorces and a lot of things that are going on now where they're like, what could I have done when I got married when I was 19? Right.
They feel like they're missing that piece in their life. And I see that a lot too, especially where I grew up, because, there's the marriage system out there is kind of strange, and a lot of people get married young. Yeah. And so, like you're saying, by the time they're 40 and they're done having kids and they're kind of getting their independence back a little bit, that's when they start, oh man, I kind of wish I did this. And, a lot of them do end up leaving their relationships and going out and figuring out themselves, right? Learning who they are, because they never got that point in their life to go out and discover themselves. I think it's a huge disadvantage to people that pretty much everyone I grew up with got married fairly young, but I think it is a disadvantage in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, why? Explain. I'm going to jump in on that too, but what do you think?
I think there's pros and cons, but I think a big disadvantage is one, just not learning your independence, not learning you through and through, what you like, what you enjoy. Maybe, you want to go to Paris and you never get to do that. And that's something that kind of eats at you for your whole life, maybe. I think it's important to be able to go out and discover yourself and enjoy life and see the world. But I think it's also important for some people to get grounded young. I know some people, it's like if they didn't get married and have a kid at 21, they'd probably have, drove off a cliff. Yeah. They're so wild and reckless.
If they didn't have that thing that made them
anchor, Yeah. And so that's why I say there's pros and cons to it. But for me personally, I'm glad that I waited a little bit.
See, dude, my fear is like I'm glad we did. And that was our plan. Mm-hmm. I mean, in high school, if you would have asked me, like I had long relationships all through high school and after, and 3-4 years with one girl. And I thought, like, when my buddies were leaving on missions, it was always like, oh, when I come back, Derek's probably going to be married with a kid. Like that was what everyone thought. Mm. And now looking back, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I waited. Yeah. Because one, my family was having their own thing going on. And so I wasn't ready, because I kind of had to shoulder a lot of that going through all of that. And then when I finally found Amanda, which again, I'm convinced, and it sounds terrible, I think, when I say it out loud, but like, I'm convinced she was put here for me to find her, because I'm like, the person that she is who I need. Right. And I think the person that I am is kind of who she needs.
The yin to your yang.
Yeah. And one thing we've always, and both of us have done it really well, and I think it's needed, is there has to be some level of selfishness in the relationship. And like, we're both completely independent a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. Like she can go do her own thing. Like it's a work thing this time, but she's going to Hawaii, I think in a week or two for a work meeting, right? That's what they keep calling it. And 2 of her friends are going, but they work together.
They better play too,
I know.
Better not go to Hawaii and not have some fun.
Right. Well, I'm always like, dude, go knock yourself out. And I'm not even that, I don't even want to travel. Like, I'm not even that guy. Yeah. I'm like, I'll just be here. Let me know when you get back. Yeah. Hopefully Will and I are still alive.
Right. Dude, what a cool relationship though. Like the dynamic of your relationship is it's pretty unique. It's awesome. Yeah. You guys are both breadwinners. You both are out hustling. You're both hard workers. Like, that's pretty cool.
Well, and I think that when I was looking, I had been through, like I said, long-term relationships with different girls, and it helped me like narrow down like what I wanted to find. And for a little bit there, I was nervous if I was ever going to find it. Cause like I had kind of like probably let me put it this way. I had higher standards than I could pull. Like I was shooting for the moon, right?
That's good. Well, they say shoot for the stars. If you hit the moon, then it's still a win, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I ended up working out for me. So I don't know if it works out for everyone, but worked out for me. And when we got married, like I was like, my family stuff had just kind of figured itself out. My dad was gone. I took over our family house. She moved in. After when we got married, she moved in, and then I was like, dude, I am not ready to like start a family or do any, like, I'm still trying to pay bills.
You just barely got your own independence back, kind of, in a way.
I had roommates before we got married, and I kicked all the roommates out. So I went from like making money every month off of roommates to having to cover the entire thing. And
yeah, that's a big step.
Yeah. And so I was
today's world.
I'm like, pump the brakes on all this family stuff. And she was like, I want to go through school. With my parents' relationship, I wanted her to go through school. For better or for worse, if something ever happened to us or happened to me, like she wasn't just 100% reliant on me.
That's solid. And I mean, if shit hit the fan, I mean, that's part of the reason you kept your mail route, but like just her income and her having that stable income is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, she's always going to have a job. Kids are always going to fall out of trees and break their arm,
Right.
Like, that's really good. That helps you in your life and your entrepreneurial spirit and the path that you're going down.
As long as there's razors. As long as there's razors and side by sides,
scooters, and
electric bikes.
Yeah.
and so we kind of got to that point where I was like, she's like, well, let me get through school. Once I get through school, we'll talk kids. And so like our 5-year plan was like get her through her master's degree. And even at that point, like I went and got a job at the post office, not the contract routes. Like I transitioned into the post office, and I didn't think I was going to be a career guy, but like I was making decent money. And then she started going to work and she was making decent money. Dude, and like I got too selfish at a point because I was like, why do we want to mess this up with kids? Like that was my thought process.
I get that, man. I really do. Like you feel like you're starting to succeed. And, I mean, Ashley and I our goal, for the last 2 years before we had our baby was to be in different city every month, travel to a different city every single month. And we were doing that for, until COVID hit. And it was awesome. Like we traveled a lot, saw a lot of stuff, did a lot of fun things together. And I think that is part of the reason a lot of people end up don't having kids. They're like, this is like, I've kind of made it. And like, I enjoy this. And it is selfish. It is a selfish lifestyle. And I'm not saying it's the wrong choice. Ryan was on here. And it's like, I loved his perspective on how ignorant is it for you to think that your choices and the way that you live your life is the only way to live it. Right. So people that choose to not have kids, I get that. I was terrified to have a kid. Like bringing a kid up in today's society is daunting and it is scary. And like, how do you navigate today's society? Like I could navigate the 80s and 90s because that's kind of what I grew up in. But now it's like all bets are off. That's just scary. So I get people that don't, but at the same time, it's like the people that have those thoughts are the ones that probably should have kids. The ones that have the anxieties and are really worried and focused on giving them the best possible outcome in life are the ones that should have children. And Elon Musk has kind of blown this whistle, over the years of, we need youth. Like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by our population growth is not looking good in a lot of countries. Most developed Western countries are not looking good, and educated countries, and
are we an educated country?
No. I was referring to Japan, Germany. No, America's birth rate is starting to go down, but Germany's is already looking pretty bad. Japan.
I mean, do you just think that's because our generation having less kids or no kids?
Sure.
I mean, that's what the number comes from.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that people just are like us or have anxieties about it. They get selfish in their lifestyles. Like, why would I screw this up? And also because I think the family dynamic has changed big time.
That's what I was getting at.
And you're a perfect example of that. Like how many people have a wife that's out there that's a freaking master's degree, making good money and has a career, and that's new.
Right.
That's a new relationship in the world, relatively new, And so I think that's a big part of it. Like why would a woman jeopardize all that once they've worked and gone through school and honestly, a lot of it's just like the natural the course of action. Like when she gets to 30 or 35, when she's finally out of school and working, it's like, it's hard to have a kid at that point, like just biologically.
Yeah. Well, and that's what our big push was, like going back to that, was if anything ever happened to me, that she could take care of everything.
Yeah.
Financially, work and all that. Yeah.
Oh, that's
and
great. That's a good safety net.
Well, dude, and that's the thing is, like, I've always said, I can't do what I do without her. I mean, if she's not grinding and working, and I mean, and she does more than she needs to, like, you know that. And so, like,
Yeah, you guys both do. Every
she's
time I
on
see
call,
Amanda,
she's doing everything. She doesn't just have a 9 to 5. She's all the time.
That's what's funny about you two is you're similar in a lot of ways, but you're polar opposite in others.
Yeah.
In the right ways. You're polar opposite in the right ways. You know, like she's the yin to your yang, like you're talking about. But every time I see her, she's hustling. I'm like, well, how's Derick? Well, I wouldn't know because I haven't seen him. And, you know, and she kind of says it tongue in cheek, just being funny. You know, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll text him.
That's funny because that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like, my example with her's always been when I'm hanging out with my buddies, or like we did a bachelor party once, like all my high school buddies. This is years ago. And
those are dangerous.
Yeah. Well, we just like went out shooting guns and did a bonfire or something, just something easy for the night. And like the entire time, like they're all getting texts, when you coming home, you guys almost done, you know, whatever. And I'm like checking my phone. I'm like, yep, nothing yet. You know, yeah. And then like 9 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, well, I know she's asleep by now, so I'm not getting a text now.
At first you're like, oh, this is nice. And then by 10 you're like,
I'm like, does she even care?
Yeah. I could have shot my foot up by now.
But like, that was like a thing I had to deal with that, dude. Cause that was when I was dating girls in high school and stuff. I was like the clingy. I want to know, I'm in control. Like, I'm a control personality anyway.
Yeah.
And so to transition from that to what the relationship is I have now, like that was a big thing. Like, I had to be okay with that. And it was something I really had to work at.
Yeah. Some guys don't like that.
And then once I did, though, I was like, why would you want it any other way?
Oh, for sure.
Like that.
Trust me, that's the better alternative to the very.
But like, I was the problem, not her. I was the problem that had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, dude. Going back again, she's gonna kill me because we keep bringing her up. But
my ass is grass too, man.
So back to building your house, dude. So one thing I want to talk about with your design is I feel like in Southern Utah, when I drive by one of your houses, I know it's your house.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Why was there a reason for that? Is there a staple for that? Where did that come from?
I think a big part of the business world is it's very saturated. It doesn't really matter what market you get into. There's going to be heavy competition. Being a builder in Southern Utah, heavy competition. There's a lot of people that do it. I felt like I needed to stand out in order to kind of find my place in that competition. And, you know, it's an ongoing thing. You got to change your look and stay relevant. There's a lot of builders that don't, and they just do the same thing over and over. And you also know their houses when you see them, you know, but they're just the same thing from 30 years ago. I took a lot of my inspiration from a couple of classes, just architect classes that I took online. California had a big influence on me, you know, spent some time in West Hollywood, and thought, hey, why don't I bring this look to Southern Utah? So, you know, being a project manager for other builders and other developers, they wanted just the same thing, you know, cut and dry. I know this is going to make money. We've done it before. There's no risk. Let's just do that. And when I started my own thing, I thought, man, how can I do these same floor plans that have been tried and proven in Southern Utah? They make sense. They have the right, you know, bedroom to bathroom ratios. They have the right garage sizes, all these things, but give them a facelift and make them unique.
They're definitely that.
Yeah. At first it was a little tricky because the modern look usually is just more expensive. You know, you're using more premium materials, you're using harder to get materials, and just stuff's more out of the box. You know, your subs are going to want to charge you more because it's something they're not used to. And so it was definitely a big learning curve to get that look. But once I got it and I was able to kind of whittle down the price per foot to be the same as everything else in town, that's when people are like, wow, like, why would I not go modern? It appraises for more right out of the gate. Your appraised value. So you already have more equity in your home, and then you're different than the rest of the people in town. And that's big for most of my customers are coming to me because it's different.
Yeah.
They want to look different. They want a unique home. They want the curb appeal to be not the same thing that's been here for, you know, 15, 20, 30 years. So,
yeah. Well, and that's what, like, I think the first time I saw one of your houses framed, because I think it was about when we started building.
Yeah.
And we were driving around, and that was my first thought, was like, whoa, that's different. And I mean, I guess we should explain it a little bit. Like, so you have different angles of the roof. They're very sharp angles. the colors, like even when I drive past the front, the colors that you're using on the surfaces are different. Maybe talk about that. I'll let you talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure I don't explain it very well.
Symmetry's big. I spend a lot of time making sure that the house looks balanced. If you got a pop out or 3-window pop out here, you got to match it and, try to make it look like it's not lopsided. So a lot of it is just purely symmetry, and having an eye for that is, like the architect eye for that is key. The design stuff comes after that, as far as the materials used and the finishes used. But my rule of thumb is usually to have 4 different finishes on the face of the house. So whether I use a lot of tile on the outside of the home. I use a lot of real wood, a lot of Brazilian hardwood is what I use. There's also some synthetic fake products that I like to use that look like that. And then stucco. I use a lot of grid in my stucco to kind of break up the monotony of a stuccoed wall. And then a lot of metal. I use a lot of metal as well. And so those are kind of usually the 4 stapled items. And there's a lot of options within those, and that's kind of my
your
formula
stick.
as far as like what I'm going to put on the face of it. But
I think that's what we messed up on our house. Like I'm very black and white. I'm very plain.
Yeah, masculine.
I want ham,
Simple.
cheese, and
right.
ham and cheese, and that's it. Don't even put any mayonnaise on that thing.
The male brain is just efficient, and most male brains are just efficient, simple.
But like I look at my house, and even like it's not so much the front; it's the back.
Yeah.
Like I look at the back of my house, and we have we're a walkout basement, right? And so it's very tall and it's very wide.
Yeah.
And it's all white, off-white stucco.
Yeah, a lot of people. Budget controls a lot of those decisions, right? But a lot of people forget about the back of the house. And if you have a walkout basement, or if people can see your house from a road, and like you got to consider curb appeal from that direction as well.
I didn't.
Yeah, and there's ways to fix that down the road if you wanted to. But usually, like my columns, I'll do as an accent, so it kind of brings your eye up. Whether that's just a different stucco color or doing tile or rock,
Yeah, I think we should have wrapped it.
Which you still can. You could put rock right over the top of your stucco if you wanted to, or tile. And then I do a lot of like patio lids with wood, so you have kind of an accent when you look up. It kind of brings your eye up. But yeah, it's all about the placement of texture, color. A lot of that stuff comes into play. And I play around with a lot of renderings. That's kind of the first step. But obviously you design the plan. The floor plan is the first step that you take. And then after that, I work with a digital renderer that will build that as a 3-dimensional model. And I sit down with the client and say, okay, and I give them a lot of input. Most of the time they're coming to me saying, hey, what would you do if this was your house? I hear that way too much. It's like, this is not my house.
Right.
So I'll tell you what I think looks good. And then I want you guys to kind of steer the boat, but we'll build a digital rendering that looks like, if you go to my Instagram or the Atlas page, most people can't decipher between the digital rendering and the real thing.
Really?
Yeah. Like it's really, really high quality rendering. I get that done. And that's kind of the Bible for my subs. This is what the house is going to look like. Here you go. But also the biggest thing is it just takes away the guesswork and the anxiety for the homeowner. They're not staying up all night thinking, what's that tile going to look like next to that wood, and they're not texting me at 9 p.m. like, hey, why don't we, it just helps a lot of the guesswork and the anxiety. So I'd recommend that for everybody, to do that. Anybody that's building custom. But you can do the back if you want. You can do a total, like Mitch talked about the Matterport camera that he does. I can do that at the rendering stage. So we're doing that virtually based off the plans, and we can go through the house finished.
That's crazy.
Digitally,
Yeah. So people that don't know what a Matterport is, it's basically like a 3D walk around of the house digitally, right?
Yeah. Anybody that's been on Zillow or looked at an online listing, they're probably familiar with how you can kind of walk yourself through the home, but there's technology now to do that before the home's even there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. And the guy that I use is from Ukraine. It's a company from Ukraine. And they get really in depth. They get on Google Earth and they see where the sun sets and rises.
Wow.
So they'll put the shadowing, because a lot of color and texture is about shadow, right? It's going to look different in twilight as it does in sunrise or midday. And so they'll give you 3 different shots if you want what it looks like in sunrise and midday and twilight. And then they'll also get on Google Earth and they'll have me send a lot of pictures, drone shots and pictures from the street, and they'll actually put the asphalt in the front of the picture. They'll put the terrain, like if there's native terrain or native shrubs in there, trees, that's all there. It's crazy. So when I look at the rendering, and I love to look at the rendering and the finished product, because even I'm like, wow, like that was wild. That's crazy how
that they can even come up
yeah.
with that, man. That's insane.
Yeah, and they're in Ukraine. They never even see it.
Yeah, they've never even been on this side of the
and they've
planet.
had me send pictures of the final product, and they're just like, yeah,
they're like,
awesome.
did it?
That's cool.
Check.
And those guys are great. It's a little bit of a disconnect because they are obviously like completely opposite time schedules, but it works out really well.
So if someone's building, which is going on a lot, is it slowing down a little bit? Are you seeing that at all?
It's slowing down. The market's really weird right now.
I know.
It's so strange.
Weird.
A lot of people are kind of sitting on their money. I think rates are going to be high for a while. I mean, they may come down in the next year a little bit, but we're never going to see free money like 2% again.
Right.
That was just bananas. But I see a lot of people in the custom range that don't need a loan still building.
Okay.
Because inflation has been curbed a little bit. I'm seeing most costs pretty much what they were before COVID on most materials. And
really?
So if you don't need a loan, like now is a great time to build.
Okay.
The buyer, the homeowner has a little bit more power as far as being able to pay cash, and labor is coming down and they can negotiate. Hey, if I pay cash, like what can we work out? And so it's kind of back in the power pendulum has kind of swung back to the homeowner. COVID was terrible. It was the worst time to build. Yeah. I hated it. And I'm a builder. It was just awful.
See, we were right at the beginning of it.
And I built during COVID too. And so I was part of that as a homeowner too. Like, this is awful.
You're playing both sides.
Yeah, I mean, my own home was delayed 2 months off of trivial things like stucco foam and my trusses and like stuff that I order all the time, all year round, like not being able to get that product even for me.
For your own house.
And I was totally calling them, say, hey, this is my house. Like,
yeah. Get
my trusses here.
And Ashley's like, defuh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, yeah. Bless her heart. She was pregnant at the time. And, we were renting at the time and our rental was up. Like,
I remember this.
Up. Yeah, this is up. And I think it was up in, I want to say, it's like March or April. And they did let us extend for another month. But after that, they're like, you guys got to get out because we're selling it.
They're selling it. Yeah.
And I would have done the same thing because they got like top market dollar for it. They sold it for like double what they bought it for like 2 years prior. So I would have done the same thing. But it put us in a bad spot because our house wasn't done. And guess who the builder is?
Right.
Also her husband.
Yeah.
And she's pregnant and she's not happy.
And we'll get to the point of how great Ashley is. So
that's coming. So luckily we had a friend that was living in Texas and he let us rent his place for 2 months. So we moved, twice in 2 months, and she's pregnant and it's in the middle of summer. It was hard for her. And she's such a trooper, dude. She was hauling boxes and putting stuff away, and being able for her to have that nesting experience in a new home was cool. Like we have a nursery. We were able to paint the walls how we wanted. We were able to kind of design it exactly for him, knowing he's going to be a boy. That was cool.
Yeah.
And being, seeing her have that was fun.
Let's talk about Ashley a little bit, and then I want to go back to what the process is to get with you if someone's looking to build. But
all right.
Let's brag about Ashley a little bit. So I've known Ashley longer than I've known you.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, I've probably known her 14, 15 years. Mm-hmm. She worked with my brother. We played softball together.
Yeah.
And then she worked at Sprint forever. And she's
was Sprint girl, man.
She was the text away from me if I had issues with my phone.
She's everyone's tech support.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've noticed that the store shut down that she used to be at. So I'm like, yeah, that's probably how valuable she was to that place. Like,
she made her exit.
I don't know the situation or anything of it, but I'm like, dude, I don't know that place stands without her. So
she still has people like, loyal customers that still ask her for help. It's so funny, like I haven't worked there for a long time, but I guess I'll help you because I like you. But it's funny.
So talk about her a little bit, man. It's my favorite part to get on here and talk about spouses and families, and it changes the tone of the voice. It changes the excitement. It changes everything. So tell me about her.
So Ashley,
I'll let you take over, dude. Now that I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. The way we met was it's a fun story. I like her story. I was not having luck dating in St. George. Just was not finding a girl that I thought was wife material, And so I was actually kind of outsourcing. I'd been hanging out with some girls in Salt Lake and Vegas and would travel down there and take them on dates. And there was a girl I was going down to hang out with in Vegas who ended up not working out. I'm like, I'm already going down there. I'm just going to go down there. Had some mutual friends that were, partying down there, like, hey, come down and meet up with us. They were going to, I'm trying to remember the club they were going to, Hakkasan. And they're like, come on down to Hakkasan. We got a table, come party. I got down there and realized I'd left my ID. So I'm like, well, that's not going to work. So I ended up not meeting up with them that night. But they're like, hey, we're grabbing breakfast in the morning if you want to come get breakfast with us. And showed up to breakfast, and they were in a big like semicircle booth, probably 7 of them sitting at booth. And the only seat open was like next to the aisle, and it was by Ashley. And all of them were in kind of just, loungewear. And she's still in like night dress, high heels, makeup, hair done, drinking a Four Loko, 10 a.m. My first initial thought of Ashley was, that's a hot mess. Anyone that's drinking a Four Loko at 10 a.m. is probably someone I don't want to mess with. But little did I know that she had a hell of a night. She had been engaged to a guy for a couple of years and basically got in a big fight that night, and they broke it off. She gave the ring back and everything. It was just this big thing. Dang. So I didn't know that. I just sat next to her and shook her hand. I'm like, hey, I'm Marcus. Just don't stab me with your fork. So ate breakfast, hung out, and everyone's like, hey, we're going to Wet and Wild after. You should come. I was just going to head back home. I was like, water parks. Like, come on. Kind of talked me into it. I was like, all right, I'll go. And she didn't have a ride home. Well, she had a ride home, but her ex had taken like all of her belongings, her purse. She didn't have her wallet. She didn't have anything. So she was kind of stranded. She did have a Victoria's Secret credit card. So she went to Victoria's Secret, got a swimsuit. And then I didn't even know she was going to go to the water park, but ended up running into her again there. And I guess I was the only guy that wasn't really trying to bark up her tree. That's what she says. I definitely was like, man, she's gorgeous. But again, hot mess. I'm just going to stay away.
Something's going on.
And then I also found out that she had just gone through that night. And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to, bark up that tree. But all the other guys definitely were. So
they were like,
I think that was I think that's why. And she, she would say the same thing. That's kind of what made her be like, oh, this, maybe I will hang out with him later. Yeah. Ended up reconnecting in St. George. Her ex lived with her. And so he moved out, and she needed, somebody to hang out with and find some space away from him. And that was me.
And here you are.
Yeah. Haven't got rid of her since.
Have you met Marcus?
Yeah, exactly. Moved in together, ended up, dating for 6 years and then got married. And she would have gotten married a lot sooner. I was definitely kind of gun shy on that and gun shy on having kids and everything. She's ready to go. Grateful I found her. I was at a time in my life where I was outsourcing. Who knows what I would have found out there. Yeah. And she's just like that good country girl. She grew up in Vernal for half her life and then here for the other half of her childhood. Went to high school at Snow Canyon. And she is someone I could take home to mom. She is well-versed in livestock. I grew up, raising cows and raising horses, and that was a big thing for me because I think that teaches kids responsibility and selflessness, being able to take care of animals, especially on scale, a lot of animals. So she's awesome, man. She's the girl that looks like she's from California, but she's from Vernal, and she'll like get in the pig pen or the horse pen or whatever, which is great. So
she's just always been, she's fun. She's always easy to get along with.
She's genuine.
Yeah.
She's like,
that's a good word for it.
Person for like, you know what you're getting yourself into when you meet her. There's no fake personality. She doesn't put on a fake show, which for whatever reason that seems to be rare with cute girls, Yeah. They always are trying to be someone they're not, but yeah, that's what I really like about her. She's very genuine, down to earth.
Yeah. I think I have like 2 friends that are girls. Yeah. Like I would consider her one. Yeah. And she's always, like I said, when she's been the customer service side of it, she's always taken care of me. Yeah, but like just to sit down and talk to her, she's always just been easy to talk to.
Yeah, she's great. And she, watching her be a mom has been awesome.
Wow.
Because she was, the youngest of her family and didn't have a lot of experience with kids. I had a lot of experience with kids because I helped raise them. And so I wasn't so worried about that part of it. She was really worried about that. She's like, I don't know. I don't really know how to take care of a kid or a baby, Like I know how to take care of a kid, but an infant, that's a whole different story,
A 9-year-old's different.
Yeah. You just show up to the hospital and then you're going home with a new baby. Like,
dude, that surprised me too.
It's like everything is strange. You're like, oh man, I got to care for this baby, this other human, like make sure he doesn't freaking die. Right. Feed him and take care of him. And at first it's a little shocking,
And I thought so when we had William, not to hijack your story right here, but so
it's the same story, man, I'm sure.
When we had William, I think he was at like 2 or 3 in the morning, something like, he was super early in the morning. And then they moved us up into our room, like the hospital room. And I think Amanda slept for like 4 hours. And then she was up in the shower and ready to leave. And I was like, dude, I thought we got like 2 days here. And like the nurses showed us how to do all this stuff. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. You're like, can you play that video back for me?
Yeah.
You got any pamphlets I can take home?
And I was even like, I told her like after she had Will, I was like, hey, so I should probably take sleep for a couple hours because I got to work.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Nice try. You're going to sit in that.
Yeah.
In that bed, that chair, that's going to break your back.
Right.
You already had back issues, so I'm sure that hurt.
Then it turned out to like, I mean, I think it was 4 or 5 hours she slept, and I slept in the chair, and then she was in the shower, and I'm like, I don't know if you're supposed to be showering yet. And she's like, I'm ready to get out of here. Dude, and I'm like, wild. I mean, I guess she spends a lot of time at the hospital at work, right? So like, I get that part of it, but dude, we rolled. And everyone's like, well, we got to do this first. Well, we have to test that first. And she's like, hey, get it done. I'm ready to get out of here.
That's awesome.
And so like we left that day.
That's crazy. And we were there for a couple of days and it sucked because he had some belly ribbon problems with his numbers weren't good enough. So we ended up staying there, which was, dude, I mean, talk about fried nerves. Like when you're in the hospital, and I'm talking for myself, and like hers is probably even like, God bless women because like they're rock stars. I don't know how they go through that stuff, but I'm glad they do because I sure couldn't. But when we were in the hospital for a couple of days and they're coming in and poking your baby's foot every hour to check his, he's bleeding and he's screaming. And it's like, after a couple of days of that, I wanted to just beat the shit out of the next nurse that came in to hurt my baby.
Right.
And I know they're doing their job, so you just sit on your hands, but it's just like, it just ate away at me so quickly. So when we were finally ready to go home, I was like, let's walk. So it was good to get home, but we actually had to take a bioluminescent light home because Thanksgiving was like, we had him the 21st, which was like a Monday, I think. And we were in the hospital for 3 days. And so I wanted to get, like, Thanksgiving's a big deal in my family. And it was the first Thanksgiving without my dad. And my dad only really did 3 holidays. It was New Year's, 4th of July, and Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And Thanksgiving is a big deal.
So that was the big one.
Big deal. So I was like, we got to be there for that, especially because I felt like my role in my family had gotten magnified, I guess. And I wanted him to be there too, like my baby. So I was like, can I take that light home? Because we're just sitting under this cool light. Like, do you got one that's portable? And they're like, yeah, we got a couple. We don't, we'll have to see if it's there. I'm like, yeah, we'll go see right now.
Let me know.
Yeah. Because there was kids in there. We were in the pediatric unit at that point. So there was kids in there with COVID. There's kids in there with pneumonia, RSV at the time, just all kinds of nasty stuff. I'm like, dude, I want to get my kid out of here quick.
Yeah. Because
he's going to get something worse than belly ribbon if we stay here any longer. And they came back and the nurse could tell it. I was just like chomping at the bit. And she's like, yeah, we got a light, but usually insurance doesn't cover it. And I was like, I don't care what it costs. Like, send it home with me. It's $500 a day. Send it home. Yeah. And we had it for a couple of days and it was just like, thank goodness to get out of there. Made it for Thanksgiving, which is like, bless Ashley's heart for being such a trooper on that.
She's like, I'm kind of dealing with some things here.
She was a rock star. Like Ashley's usually her, like, I sound bad, but her pain tolerance or her tolerance for sickness is a lot lower than mine. Like I'll go to work with a flu and a cold and just, power through it. And she needs to stay home and rest, which is fine. Like everyone's different. But when she had that kid, I was like, dude, you're a tough chick. Like I could not believe it. Like she labored at home in our bathtub for 6 hours before we went in, I was like, she wasn't dilating. So just seeing her go through that process, like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like so much more appreciation to women. Like I knew that they had children, my mom had a lot of kids, but to finally like witness it.
It's different.
Not only that, but the doctor literally like gloved me up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's, I was going to be on the north end of the hemesphere and kind of just hold her hand, and be, do the guy thing. Oh no, dude, he had me so involved.
I mean, I was holding the leg.
I had him. I held hand him scissors at one point. I'm like, I don't think I'm licensed to do that. But whatever.
I didn't scrub or anything.
Yeah. So it was a good experience. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think when Amanda was finally ready, if I remember right, there was like 2 other births going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so
they're watching their vitals too in the room.
And there was one nurse. Oh, and so she's like, well, I'm going to grab this leg. You grab that leg. And I was like,
put you to work too.
Oh yeah. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of witnessed a little more than I thought I was going to.
Gosh. I don't want to divulge into any details, but there was one complication where, things got bloody. And I was like, oh, dude.
I wasn't ready for this.
I know. I remember looking at my mom. I was like, oh my gosh. And she's like, yeah.
So they let your mom in. That's good.
Yeah,
though.
We had my mom there and her mom, and it was awesome.
Good.
Having them both there. And Ashley wanted to watch the whole thing, so she put a mirror up.
Oh.
I was like, damn.
We didn't have, it was just me.
Really?
Yeah, because it was like, it was, so they were still doing all the, because that was
because you're
COVID.
right in COVID, yeah.
Yeah, that was right in COVID.
Luckily, we were on the tail end of it, so they allowed us to have up to 3 in there.
So like my mom, like when they put us in our room, like, so my mom worked in Mom and Baby for a lot of years, like years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so she like knew a couple, so she just like walked in like she was meant to be there. And it was like it's the new area of the hospital. So she didn't know where she was really going, but I think she saw 1 or 2 people she used to work with and they kind of pointed her in and like she wasn't even supposed to be there.
So they let her in though.
Yeah. So she came into the room with us and I'm like, she's like, I'm coming in. I'm like, I don't think you can be in here. She's like, well, I'm coming in. And I was like, all right.
Dude, what a blessing. Like having her already be well-versed in that.
Yeah.
Like the Mom and Baby stuff. That's awesome to have that, Like I loved my mom being there because she's had 7 kids,
Sure.
Like she knew almost as much as the nurses as far as like what to tell Ashley to do. She was kind of the coach for her. So it was a great experience all the way around. And my mom had done like, so many kids in 1 year. So she was tired, like being up all night,
Yeah, having all the other siblings. And, dude, so what's changed with you with having a son? Not even a kid, but just a son in general. What's that? Because, dude, it's changed my whole life.
Everything. Everything's changed.
I mean, what are some of those things? Like I talk about them all the time on here, but I'm curious if they're the same or different. We're both business owners. We're both our first, and it's a son. And
a lot of reflection. First of all, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like it's the biggest responsibility I think another human can take on. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of scoff at that don't have kids, but once you have a kid, you're like, wow, this is the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Right. So lots of reflection. I definitely reevaluated my priorities. Like I am a businessman, I am an entrepreneur, but finding that work-life balance meant a lot more to me. When it's just me and Ashley, I just worked myself to the bone. My stress levels were high. I worked all the time. I worked weekends when I need to, and I still do when I have to, but definitely family's priority. Being there for him is priority. Like the thing that will make me late for work, I'm never late. I always get up on time with no alarm clock. Like that's just how I'm wired, thanks to my dad. But the only thing that will keep me from going to work early is if my son wakes up the same time I do. And I'm like, dude, I've got to stay for this because seeing him wake up in the morning is like the highlight of my day. Like they're just so excited to be alive and to see you. And it's just like, oh man.
Dude, wait for this. My kid, like he'll get up and go sit on the couch and I'll walk out and he'll say, Dad, you want to snuggle with me? Oh. Dude, wait for that and then try to leave for work, bro.
Good luck, man. Yeah. So definitely reevaluated priorities and thinking back a lot on my dad, like he was a great dad, like, but you kind of start breaking that down into its different components on like, okay, what should I do better? That's every generation's job, in my opinion, is like do it better than your parents. Yeah. They gave you the best that they had. And I there's a lot of forgiveness that has to come into that equation before you can look at it that way. But for me, it was, how do I raise this kid up to be at least as good as me, but better for sure? And you end up appreciating a lot of the teachings that you had as a kid and start things that you kind of forget. It's just at the back of your head start kind of popping up like, oh, this is why my dad did and my mom did this, or this is why they did this, or this, stuff starts to click and make sense. And so really digging back in those files has been a big part of it. He's not around anymore, so that's what I have to dig back into his files. And I'm obviously seeing that from a memory from my youthful self versus like being able to go to my dad and say, hey, like, why'd you do this? Or why'd you do that? But it's affected. I feel like the slowdown, like in building, has been perfect timing. Like hustled and busted my ass during COVID, built a lot of homes. And then the slowdown right when I had my baby was just really good timing. Like I'm comfortably busy. I'm comfortable in a spot with my business. Like I obviously want to grow it, scale it. I've got big plans for some other stuff, but right now I feel so blessed to be able to just enjoy him being an infant because they grow up so fast. Everyone says that, but like they literally change every day. Yeah. Like there's been time, like we've gone on 1 or 2 weekend trips where we haven't seen him for 2 days and you come back, you're like, whoa, you put on like a 1/4 of an inch and like, now you're playing patty cake. Like, what the hell, man? Why'd you wait for me? And they don't wait, they're going to grow.
I remember putting Will on the changing table and his like feet were hanging off. Yeah. I'm like, the hell, dude, when did you get so long?
And I think Amanda mentioned you have a pretty big kid, right? Like
yeah, he's tall.
He's giant.
He's got a massive head. Yeah. He's got a big old, he was always like, like when they were doing all the measurements and stuff, he was 50 to 70% and everything. And then his head was 100. And I was like, dude, you're the one they measure all the kids off of. Like,
Good
you're
luck.
the 100.
Yeah, good luck finding a hat that fits your melon, dude.
Well, dude, he like, I can take my hats and just knock it down like five, you know, like the snapbacks, and it fits him.
How's his balance with a big old noggin like that?
Well, I think it was hard for a while, dude, but now he's got all those neck muscles and he just rolls.
Is he walking pretty good now?
Oh, dude, he like, once he took a step, he was running.
Jeez, dude,
like I don't know. I think it was fairly normal when he started walking,
right.
But it went from like a walk to a straight run. And dude, he's everywhere right now.
Yeah, just terrorizing.
Yeah.
We're at that point. I mean, Xander was 100 percentile in height when he was born. He's 22.2 inches long.
Wow.
And he was 9.2 pounds. So big kid.
Yeah.
So he measured in the 100 percentile all the way up until like a month and a half ago. Now he's like mid 90s and like 70th in weight, but he's a big kid.
Yeah.
Like big hands, big feet. And Ashley's biological dad was 6'5". So it's not for me. You know, my dad was the same height as me. And yeah, he's going to be a big kid. But just seeing, like, he looks like a toddler right now. And he's 7 months old.
Right.
So like we kind of felt like we missed the infant stage. So I'm just really soaking up every moment I can because like I'm going to turn around and that kid's going to be taller than me. And
well, it's like they go through so many changes so fast. So when you were saying like time goes so fast, like, I mean, when they're 13 to 14, it might not seem like so many changes, but
want to smack them beside the head half the time.
But like right now, it's like every day it's something new. And I'm like, wait, you're saying that now? Oh, you can talk in full sentences now?
Yeah.
Oh, like you can say these words?
It's
and
wild. Their brains are rapid. They develop so quick. And it's awesome to see.
William talks really well. And well, from what everyone tells me, like he talks really well for his age. And he I swear he went from like, you kind of trying to figure out what he was saying to like full sentences. And I mean, that's how he is now. Like what I would do before he was even talking, if he would be out on the couch or he was awake eating whatever in the mornings. And when I'd first see him, I'd say, what in the world? You know, and then he'd turn and we'd, you know, and it like one day I walked out and he turned to me and he's all, what in the world? And I was like, what the freak, dude? Like, you can talk now? And like,
where'd you learn that?
Yeah. And it was like all these things that I say to him a lot. Like he just starts repeating. I mean, obviously this is the process. People are going to look at this and be like, yeah, no shit, guy.
Dummy. Like, I remember my first kid. And it's probably weird to hear that from a 30-year-old talking to him this way, but it's like, well, that's my first kid. You know? Like, I'm going through it right now. And I love it. I love the process. I don't really care what it sounds like to other people. I'm just soaking it up, man. And I'm glad that you're in the same spot. You know, we both kind of waited a little bit to have kids, and I love it. I love being a dad. You know, I wear a lot of hats, do a lot of different stuff, and I help a lot of people out, and my bandwidth is pretty consumed, but just like my favorite hat to wear is being a dad. And it's so simple and it's so gratifying, but it's also the hardest, most rigorous thing ever, you know? Some of those nights they're sick or they're teething or whatever. It's like, dude, this is intense. Yeah. You know, but it's great.
Dude, my thing is like, I used to be I was an angry kid.
Really?
Like I guess I shouldn't say it like this now that I'm kind of looking back on it, because I blame a lot of it on my dad, because that was like the example I had.
The environment you're in.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know, maybe I should take some more ownership of that, but regardless, like I was kind of an angry kid because of that. Like I just didn't know how to deal with it. I just throw something, you know, and I've had that curbed for a long time. I mean, like I think there's been like 2 times I've told Amanda like, hey, I'm kind of losing my shit. I kind of need you to I need you to leave the room because I'm going to lose my shit.
At least you like, can recognize you're about to snap and you say, clear the room. I'm going to break some shit.
and so I've had to do that a couple times in our 10 years, but I've noticed it even more now with him, where I'm just hyper aware of it. And when something just something stupid, right? He's 2.
Yeah.
So like, and he loves tools. Dude, like I'll show you some pictures, dude. He loves tools. And
that's great.
He's having a hard time playing with his plastic tools versus my real tools.
Like, where's the snap-ons, Dad?
Yeah.
I know what bullshit you're trying to play.
Yeah. So I think he had like an adjustable wrench one day, dude, and he just like smacked me with it.
Oh.
Like right on, I think it was on my foot.
They don't know soft.
Yeah. And like my reaction was like just furious, right? And so I like snatched it from him and like it hit me, dude, and it hit me like slow motion, like, whoa, dude, like you need to chill.
Wow.
And so like, that's my biggest thing that I've, at least right now, that I'm like realizing is.
And that's your mini you, dude. So he's going to be throwing that wrench through the walls one of these days. You're going to be like, oh shit.
Well, he'll get like, not mouthy, but like he acts different to Amanda than he does to me.
Defiant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's fairly natural for males to act that way with their
be a
dads
little,
at some point.
Yeah.
But 2, that's pretty early, man.
Well, he was like, and maybe it's not that big of a deal, but he's like drawing on the counter, and Amanda like grabbed his hand and was like, "Where do we color?" Right. Mm-hmm. And he just turns to her and he's like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Boy, you better, like, I'm gonna snatch you off that chair and we're gonna go have a talk behind the woodshed." Right. Yeah. Like that was my initial thought.
Right.
And I start thinking, I'm like, man, he don't do that with me. Uh-huh. And he did one time and he got a flick in the teeth.
Right.
And like, he hadn't done it since.
Yeah.
And I don't know, dude, like that's what I'm nervous about is how do you, because we were terrified of my dad.
Yeah.
Or at least I was. Like, maybe I shouldn't talk for my siblings, but like he ruled us with fear. Right. And like, I don't want to do that. But at some level, I think there has to be like a fear turns into respect type of thing.
Sure.
And I could be 100% wrong. Ask me in 20 years, but
that's one of the anxieties of being a dad. You know,
yeah.
Like, how do I do this? Like, this is the example I had. Like, I had a dad that said, "Hey, go pick out the belt, and I'm gonna beat the shit out of you with, you know, if I messed up." So like, I definitely had a little bit of that. But you know, a healthy fear was definitely there. But it's, you know, even healthy fear today is frowned upon.
Yeah.
You can't do that type of stuff. So that's part of the anxieties that I had as a dad. Is like, okay, so the example I had, I've got to kind of unpack that and discard a lot of that and like figure out how to do it this way, you know, and still have him come out the other end being a decent human to society
and not having resentment and all these issues towards you.
So that, you know, and like, you know, I grew up in a conservative house too. So it was like, you backtalked mom, dude, that's the fastest way to get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Where I grew up. So
well, dude, and I think
totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, my stance on it is like, dude, that's mom. Like, we respect mom. We don't talk like that to mom. We don't act like, you want to have an issue. Let's go out in the garage, dude. And you can talk to me and yell at me and cuss at me and let's have an issue.
That was my dad's biggest thing. Like, don't disrespect your mom. Don't disrespect your sisters. I got my ass beat by my sister growing up because she could.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I had the example from my dad of like respecting women. And even if they're hitting you in the face, like, do not retaliate. Like, just, you know, let it slide. And it, you know, it's not to say that's good either, but it taught me to like never ever cross that line.
Yeah.
Like, mom is what she says goes. Do never disrespect that.
Yeah, I my thing was 3 older brothers. I got the shit kicked out of me all the time.
Yeah.
And
You're the bottom of the totem pole, man.
And we were like 16 months to 2 years apart, right? And then I have a little sister that's 5 years younger than me, Caitlin. And so when she came, I was like, finally, I'm gonna beat the shit out of her. Like, that was my thought process. I'm like, dude, when I got an issue, I'm gonna go take it out on her. And I vaguely remember some of this, but I remember there was a time I think I went and hit her when we were like kids. Like, I would have been like 6 or 7.
My older brother hit me. I'm just now gonna go hit her.
Yeah, I was mad, so I went and struck her, right?
Right.
Dude, my brothers beat the shit out of me. They were like, "This is not right."
Good.
And they were like, "This is not how this works." Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm like, and so at the time I was like, okay, so I just get crapped on from above, but then I get things blamed on me below.
I've got this cream puff I can't hurt. Like, what the hell? I got screwed.
Like, dude, I like struggled with that when I was a kid, thinking like, and my brothers, dude, I talk about it a lot, and I actually had them on here a few episodes ago with Mike and Jason, and it was awesome for me, but like, their mentality was nobody beats up our son, our little brother, but me. Yeah. And so like, they protected me night and day. Like, my mouth got me in a lot of problems, you know, that Jason typically had to back up. But, I don't know.
How cool is it to have big brothers, man? Like, that's awesome. Later in life, you know, like, we all have the struggles with our siblings when we're younger, but having that support system when you get older.
Yeah.
I didn't have a big brother, so I was always trying to find that person, you know, that was my big brother. And I found a couple that were great, you know, but I wish I would have had big brothers, you know, and I try to be that for my siblings. And I mean, I know you've talked about Adam a bunch and some of them and how much they've helped you out. So it's great to have that support system.
Yeah, and that was part of me having a son first. Like, I was kind of jacked at having a son first.
Sure, so am I.
And I don't know. I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind, but I don't know if I'm going to have another kid.
Yeah.
And so
it's like, shit, things are pretty good now. Things are awesome.
we're starting to kind of balance our life back out after
that's where I'm at.
All the craziness.
You know, you get to the 4-month mark. Well, for us, it's 4 months where you slept through the night and we could kick him out of our room into his room.
We were almost a year.
Really? Oh, geez. I feel really lucky with Xander. That's part of the reason I'm scared to have another kid, because I feel like the next one's going to be a pain in the ass. And he might listen to this someday and be like, oh, you call me pain in the ass. Like, maybe I'm putting that out in the universe. I shouldn't. He's going to be great.
He's going to be
awesome.
Great. Yeah.
For her.
Even better than Xander.
And I do feel more comfortable having a girl now. Like, I was terrified to have a girl before. It's like, do I want a girl that looks like Ashley and acts like me? No. That's the most terrifying thought I could possibly think of. But having Xander now, it's like, if I did have a little girl, at least I have that buffer where like, I know he would take care of her in school or whatever, you know. So
100%.
That's good.
Yeah. So you thinking more kids then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. At least 2.
At least 2 more or 2?
At least 2 total.
At least 2.
Yeah, I've looked into adoption too, like totally about adoption. But the process that you have to go through now, they just make it so hard.
It's stupid.
Like, so expensive. It's like, well, if it costs $70,000 to adopt a kid from out of country, it's like, why would I not just do a surrogate and have my own kid? You know, and I know there's a lot of kids out there that need parents and stuff, but just like the 3-year vigorous process to get them here and to go through all the checks and stuff, I was like, man, it's pretty discouraging.
Well, and good for those people that do it, man.
Oh yeah, and I get why the process is vigorous. You don't have a bunch of terrible parents that are.
I don't know. We have that anyway.
For tax reasons. Yeah, that's true.
There's a bunch of terrible parents out there,
and we get tax benefits from it. So I get it. I get that it's like there's a process there for a reason, but it's hard. So you know that's still in the cards, obviously. But probably have to get going on that now because it's like a 3-year deal. But
well, let's we can kind of wrap this up. I do want to put it out there on what you're doing now, building, people get a hold of you. What's the process? Just kind of walk someone through if they're looking for a builder, how that process goes. Because I think you do more than, well, like you were saying, your renderings and all that. Like you're doing more than what typical builders are doing. Yeah. I mean, being a custom builder is definitely more of a niche. So, you know, people that come to me typically not their first home. You know, it's usually their second, third, fourth home. They're usually coming to me because they're like, hey, this guy obviously thinks outside the box and he's not going to think that our ideas are crazy. You know, I have a lot of homeowners that come to me that are pretty opinionated. They know what they want, but they want that modern look or they want, you know, specific look. And they think that I'll kind of navigate them down that road and let them have that freedom. Also being a cost plus builder where everything's just very transparent is big. You know, they get to see the numbers, they get to see the bids, they get to see the invoices. So it's not, you know, I think builders get some bad connotation because, you know, a few of them ruin it for a lot of the good ones. But I try to be, you know, they see the budget, they see all of that stuff, all of the draws into the bank if they're using a bank or whatever. So that makes the process a lot more comfortable for most people. But I certainly can build whatever, you know, that's kind of the niche I found myself in with the product that I build, but I can build whatever, you know, I do a lot of commercial, I do TIs, I do, you know, I've built restaurants, whatever. Well, that's right. You guys didn't you do like a remodel or a couple TIs? Yeah. So I don't know what TI is. Tenant improvements. That's usually like if you were to get like a commercial space for a podcast or whatever, you'd hire a contractor to come in and kind of either demo it and put your space in it, or if it's a new building and it's just a shell, just a build-in, you're building that out for your space, right? Okay. It's like a box inside of a box, essentially. Got you. But that's kind of its own. So you like how I kind of said earlier, you have a specific design, I think, but you'll build anything. Yeah, I've built all across the board. Okay. You know, I've done a lot of modern, but you know, modern goes in a lot of directions. You can do modern farm home, you can do modern mountain home, you can do modern Santa Fe, modern Mediterranean. I've kind of dabbled in a lot of those, but modern does seem to be my niche. But I've done commercial, I've done man caves, I've done, you know, garages, RV garages, TIs. Okay. So how does someone get a hold of you? Is it social media the easiest? They just call you, Google, what? Yeah, not big on social media. I do have an Instagram for Atlas Homes. It's Atlas Built Homes. Actually, I should probably check that, but don't have Facebook. I only have Snapchat for family. When Ashley, does she run that, or at least she post the stuff? Yeah, she does run my Atlas Homes. So yeah, it's just Atlas Built Homes is the tag on that. Personal is just Marcus _Zitting, and be happy to connect with anybody that has questions about building, or I get a lot of kids now that are just curious about being a general contractor, which is good because when I got my general's license, I was the youngest person in Utah to have one at the time. Wow.
not to say there wasn't younger people prior, but when I got it, I was the youngest one in Utah to have one at the time. And right after I got it, it was really hard for me to get it. Like the process was pretty extensive. Right after I got it, like a year after, they made it really easy because they weren't getting any new generals, right? And like that's a problem. So the state looked at that and they're like, man, like we need more builders coming up, that are younger. So they
is that kind of scary?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then COVID hits on top of that. I saw a lot of builders that were new during COVID that had, just got their licenses, and it's really easy to get a license now. It's like, dang, I'm interested to see like
what's really easy? Like I could go do it.
So before you had to have 2 years under a general contractor. And you had to be able to prove that, with W-2. And then you had to have a certain amount of hours signed off by that person, so it had to be someone that would basically vouch for you.
Sure.
And then you had to do a written test, and the written test was closed book. And it was basically a set of plans for a commercial building, which is really intimidating because I was kind of in the residential world mostly. So they give you basically a set of plans and then a bunch of questions, and you have to just figure it out. They give you a ruler to scale.
Jeez.
They give you, I think, a calculator and a notepad and a pen and then a set of plans. And it's like 100 questions back then. It was 100 questions for, I think, the practical side. And then I want to say there was like business law that was separate from that. So there was like 2 separate tests. And it was hard, it was at a testing center and stuff. And now I'm pretty sure it's like open book, first of all. And so you can basically find the answers if you know where to look for them, or if you want to spend enough time.
It's like timed?
I think it was timed.
Okay.
And I think they've increased the time now.
I'm like, I read pretty slow, so I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Yeah, they just made it way easier. And I'm sure they'll probably, adjust that as they need to. But right now there's some new builders where it doesn't take much to get that. But not a lot of young people want to go out and bust their ass, man. It's pretty wild. And so when I first decided to be a builder, I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of builders, and it's not, maybe it's too saturated. But as I started getting into it and seeing that there was no one coming up younger than me, I was like, man, maybe it's actually not a bad spot to be in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
refreshing.
It kind of seems like what it's starting to turn into. Then just kids want to be gamers and streamers and stuff now, man. They don't really want to like go out and actually work hard. And
wait, I think we're streaming this.
That's
They all want to be podcasters.
Yeah.
Sissies.
Funny. Bunch of sissies. Air conditioned room. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but.
Oh yeah, dude. When we were doing our house, Mike and I, my oldest brother and I, we wired it. Like he helped me wire the entire thing. Dude, we're like, even when they put the top on, like the floor of the upstairs on, and we're downstairs wiring, I'm like, I don't know how.
It's a sauna.
And our builder was the framer.
Okay. Who's used to build?
Dean Mills.
Dean Mills. I've heard that name. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there like, dude, you guys are nuts. Like I'm dying down here and you guys are in direct heat the whole time. Like,
framers, concrete guys, excavators, they have like full direct exposure to the elements.
Dude.
Poor guys.
I think I lost like 10 pounds.
It's funny because like you said, you're in the shade and it still sucked. Like most other trades kind of talk shit on the finished trades or the guys that are in the shade, like electricians. And so it's funny you said that because the framers usually talk shit.
Oh, I imagine they should. They should.
They're in the shade most of the time. And
I couldn't believe it, dude. And like here, this week, I think it's supposed to be the hottest this year so far this weekend. Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, I feel bad for all those guys.
Yeah. I have a lot of work colleagues that are based up north, and they text me because they're like so concerned. Like I had one of them text me today. He's like, you're going to stay inside this week, right? Like, are you going to have your guys work? That's what he's asking me. He's like, do you have your guys work through this heat? And it's like, yeah. It's like, really? You're not worried about that? I'm like, no.
Yeah, we got water. They sweat.
Yeah. I used to frame, when I framed for my dad, I framed in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
In the summer. And
is it hotter in here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Phoenix is a lot hotter. Number wise, I think they're hot is like 118, 119, somewhere in there. But the problem is with Phoenix is there's so much asphalt that it heats up during the day and it doesn't cool down at night. Oh. So you would, and we would start work when I worked there at 3 a.m. so that we could, we'd set up work lights and stuff.
It was still 90 degrees.
95.
Oh,
dude, yeah, you would show up. You're sweating the second you walked out of the house. You didn't really have like that cool morning break that you have here. Vegas is similar too, so we had guys when I was framing there, we had at least once a week, we had a guy go into the hospital for heat exhaustion. We'd have to take salt. We'd actually make our guys drink out of the company or the crew water gots and we would put salt in them, like Himalayan salt.
Yeah.
Because if they, you're sweating so much that you end up sweating all your minerals and all your electrolytes out, and you will drop. And I had a couple days where I got sick as hell and had to.
It's bananas.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. Like blue collar workers, hats off to them, especially in places like that.
Yeah.
Or the ones that work up in the northern climates in the winter. Like that shit sucks.
Yeah, that's the whole different suck. Yeah.
Equally bad, if not worse. Like I would rather, they got to have gloves on. Yeah, it's just, it sucks.
Dang.
But we need those people. And there's less and less of those people. So it's interesting how the workforce is shifting. And
well, we're going to be able to 3D print homes pretty soon, so we don't know.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eye on that. There's a company in Salt Lake called Mudbots that's actually
doing that.
Yeah, they have one, and you can buy it. They have like a $1 million model, and then they have a $5 million model, and each one can do a specific size of home. But right now that's more of like a volume home, like cookie cutter.
Yeah.
First time homes, but. How technology is, like pretty soon that thing's going to be pretty.
So,
intense.
How much of it does it do? It just does the structure?
Yeah, it's the process is completely different because, with the traditional framed house, like you put the framing up and then you can drill holes for the electrician to get his wires through and the plumbers as well. So when you do the 3D printing, it's with concrete and it just sits there and kind of goes around the perimeter and prints this concrete. So you have to basically be there as that's printing to kind of stick your electrical receptacles in where they go and the light sockets and all that stuff. So it's the process is completely different, but the end product is a more efficient home, stronger home, more silent. It's going to stand up a lot more to the elements and be there a lot longer.
Is that the future?
Yeah.
You think
I think it is. Yeah. I kind of been keeping my eye on it. I want to be at the forefront of that technology.
That's crazy.
Push a button and just, and I think that's
I'll come back in 9 months or whatever it is.
It'll be limited to what it can do. At first it's going to be maybe the foundation that it can pour by itself, and then the walls, the exterior walls, interior walls. You're still gonna have to throw a roof on it for now. Yeah. But that technology is only going to scale and exponentially grow, just like most technologies.
Right.
If you think about,
it's not possible till it is.
I had a BlackBerry. Yeah. And now I'm just like, dude, that freaking phone knows everything about me.
Right.
It's wild. So technology like that finally hits the marketplace where people can afford it, gets scaled up to where people can afford it. It's going to take off.
That's crazy.
And then you have the whole problem of, well, what all those blue workers,
I was going to say,
blue collar workers do. Like it's interesting.
They start streaming.
Exactly. Get a podcast.
Yeah. That's really a scary thought. And like you've mentioned Elon a couple times, he's talked about that. Like there's a lot of the workforce that can be replaced tomorrow with robots.
Yep, for sure.
And it's just like, at what scale or what speed do you allow that to happen? Because
and that's where the argument, like I'm not for universal income.
Yeah,
but that's when that argument actually starts to make sense a little bit.
Sure.
It's like, man, maybe we should consider something like that. But I love free enterprise. I like the idea of free market and people that work hard get rewarded. And
right.
So I've been trying to break that down in my head.
Me too, man.
But be empathetic for the people that maybe don't have as much opportunity. That's like, well, how do you get a job?
Mm-hmm.
When everything's automated. I have a friend that worked for Amazon, and the tech layoff just what happened, and it's just like, man, like it's wild. Like when they start, like they build their replacement. Like they are coding the AI that's going to replace them, and then they lose their job. It's like, well, now what do I do? Go back to the drawing board. You went to school for it. I spent all this time working that corporate ladder, getting that position, and then boom, see ya. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So that's why I feel a little bit more secure in my career path, because for now, you need the builder out there. You got to have the orchestra the composer to the orchestra, someone that's doing all that. But it's all going to probably.
You think it's going to happen in our lifetime for sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 3D printing is going to take off. Like I said, at first it's going to be track homes, and then it's going to turn into apartments that are just one big, box that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I think custom homes will probably be the last to go, but I think components of custom homes will get automated, where you can basically buy a kit, which is crazy because you could buy house kits on Sears magazine, like back in the, 50s and 60s. And I think we'll start seeing that now more with just, plastics and polycarbonates and all kinds of stuff.
That's wild.
Yeah. I think building a home in 20 years from now is going to be a completely different process.
Yeah.
30 years from now.
Yeah. And it's going to be, it'll be interesting to see, like we'd mentioned, the 30 guys that have been building for 30 years and how much they haven't adjusted and changed to like, I mean, they're just out of a job.
I think a lot of those guys bow out at that point.
That's what I mean.
They've been doing it for 50 years at that point. Yeah.
Huh. It'll also be interesting to see what jobs are made of. I mean, because you got to have someone there maintaining it, fixing it, programming it. Like that's a whole different trade that doesn't exist right
jobs,
now.
Right? Yeah, it creates new jobs, and that's how this tech bubble's been. It's created all these new jobs, but Jeff Bezos is trying to replace the work, make it cheaper as fast as he can by using AI and all these other different tech guys. But that's essentially what's going to happen. I think with every industry, it's going to go through these shifts of new jobs, but maybe 30% of what it currently is fulfilling in the workforce. Yeah,
the 3D printer replaces 60% of the workforce, but it might bring back 10.
Yeah, and like I manage a big job right now where on a good day we'll have 100 guys on site.
Yeah.
But it's all the same product. And so like I look at that and I'm like, man, like you get a couple big tower crane type 3D printers that can just print and take out 60% of the guys on site.
And it's cheaper, better product,
stronger, less mess ups.
Yeah.
Human error is going to go out the window as much, but machines mess up too. So we'll see how that all pans out, but it's going to be pretty wild.
All right, 30 years from now, we're bringing you back on, dude. We're gonna say, you remember when we talked about?
Yeah, I'm a bum under a bridge, man. That's what's wild about life is like you get to this point where you're like, I've hit all my financial goals that I put myself, like made myself in high school. Like I still have those from my business class, and I hit all those at third. I had a 25 increment and a 30 increment. And I hit both of those, and I know you've talked about it with some of your other guests. And it's like, did I not dream big enough? Cody mentioned that, but it's like, even though I feel like I've kind of hit to the point where I can maybe relax and, I've got some income and got some savings and some assets and things like that. It's like, I'm 3 or 5 choices away from being like that guy under the bridge.
Yeah.
Like no one's really safe.
Well, it's like, dude, I'm open about it. Like I'm probably more open than Amanda would want me to be about it, but I'm like, dude, we're freaking paycheck to paycheck. Like we invest everything we make or we're spending money to make money on everything we do.
You're putting it to work.
Yeah. And so, but I'm like, do you ever not feel this way? And I think people, I mean, we have like the house I think we'll be in for a long time. We have like, I mean, heck, I think I have like 9 street legal vehicles. Yeah. We have boat, we have mountain property, and so people would look at that and be like, dude, they're killing it. And I'm like, shit, man, like I'm hoping we can make it to next week. It's funny to see like what's really going on versus, and then the other part of that is like, I would have structured this. I think I did a pretty good job structuring this from an 18-year-old to where I am now.
Yeah.
But dude, knowing what I know now, I would have done it completely different.
Yeah. And that's a whole part of the business cycle. Like you start a business at, whenever you started your first business. I started my first business at 22. And by the time you're 30, you're actually redoing that.
Yeah.
You're going back and fixing all the dumb shit you made bad decisions on. As far as structure goes, having your contracts redone, having your agreements redone, having all kinds of stuff just reworked, getting a CPA involved, getting an attorney on the payroll to look at stuff. It's just, you end up reworking everything anyways.
Well, and it's like changed my I've always just owned jobs. Like that's the way I've always viewed it. I've owned jobs. And now I'm like, well, like a year and a half ago, I've got a buddy, Blake Nyson, he's been on here and he's my CPA.
Okay,
and
cool.
Like I started telling him, dude, I need to structure this all out different. And like, I don't plan on selling it anytime soon, if ever, but I want it to where I could present that if it's ready to sell. And I'm not there at all. That's
a huge step in business, is like when you finally can step back and say, all right, I know I'm ignorant and stupid. I'm going to hire someone who's good at this. Like, now I have a CPA. Now I have an attorney that looks at everything. Now I have, people that set up my different companies and estates and trusts and all that stuff. I pay the people to do the professional stuff, and I do what I'm good at.
Right.
And at first you just kind of want to just kind of figure it out and Jimmy rig it all the way through,
Yeah. Whether you have the option or not. Like I'll figure it out. If I'm good at anything, I'm good at figuring it out.
If I can build a house, I can figure out how to do my books. And it's like, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe not. You're not doing it right. Probably. Like you get a tax CPA involved once you start making enough money, and you're like, oh, I can save that much money if I would have just talked to you at the beginning of the year. You start learning these hard lessons in business, or, you talk to a tax attorney and they do your taxes and they're like, man, if you would have done this, this, and this, you would have saved 40K this year. So you're like, what?
Yeah. Wait, what?
Come again?
Yeah.
You take that learning lesson on the chin and be like, all right, well, next year I'm going to talk to you on January 1 instead of,
And let's start getting all, like for me, it was like, I just had a bunch of LLCs that meant nothing, and they weren't correlated and they didn't talk to each other.
Not only do they mean nothing, but you're paying, to keep them licensed and the entities renewed and, all these other operating costs that if they're not, bringing you any income,
right?
Like, man, they're kind of just a liability at that point.
And so I was the first thing I did with them was like, what do I not know here? Because like I can't change it if I don't know it. And they kind of started talking to me about it, and I don't know, 50% of it was over my head. Right. And I was like, how much do you guys charge to just take care of this?
I've been there. Oh my gosh, I've been there. I remember the first time like I made enough money where I was like, I'm gonna, filed my taxes on TurboTax or whatever, and it's like, man, I wonder how much a CPA costs. I'm just gonna call a couple buddies, and first time you talk to a CPA, they're like, I cost this much. It's like, really? That's a lot to do my freaking books, But then they say, well, yeah, but you did this, and this wrong last year, and I'm going to save you this. It's
right?
Like, okay, take
start
my
paying
money
for yourself.
Like, that's the best money I spend every year as a tax attorney.
100%.
It's just like, dude, just do that stuff for me. Tell me what to do better next year, and I'll do that.
Like I think you probably have to. Like my thought is you got to like tread water or build that company big enough to where you're cash flowing enough to afford that.
Oh yeah.
But, and that's even a gray area of like, you have to be able to afford it, but you're probably losing money to where you could afford it if you just did it. Right. So there's like this weird tier of like, okay, now I'm losing more money than if I would just had them.
Conundrum, right? Like when you first start, like, Cody talked about, just start.
Yeah.
Just figure it out. File the LLC, get it figured out, get going. Use a freaking online invoicing system, use an online invoicing or, accounts payable and receivable software. But yeah, once you get to that point where you're making enough money that you're paying a bunch out in taxes, that's when you should be like, all right, how can I strategize and make this better? And then you start hiring the professionals, but just start, the growing pains are going to come.
Dude, a couple more things I want to ask you. I was actually going to wrap us up like 20 minutes ago, and now we're going.
Sorry.
Oh, Amanda's asleep by now. So one of the things I think I would change, and I'm curious now that we've talked about having our first kid and it's a son and you're entrepreneur, and this is something that's really shifted on me in like the last year and a half. I've always wanted to build a business that I can hand off to my kid. Yeah. It's always been my thing. Always, every choice I've made since I was 22, before I even knew my wife, like that's what I was making that choice off of. Is this going to benefit my son that's going to take this over one day? Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And now I've had conversations with people, and like in a nutshell, basically they've built these multi-million-dollar businesses and the kids don't want to run it. And so it's like, and then back again where like I've always owned a job. Right. And it's shifted my whole mindset to like, what's making cash? Like what's making us money? Dude, if William wants to travel the world and go be in plays, like I want to have the money to be able to support him to do what he wants to do. Sure. Right. And so it's like, I want to hand off a 40-hour-a-week job to him.
Yeah. You don't hand off a prison sentence to him.
Yeah. And like, not saying you can't build that up to replace yourself and, and have an exit strategy. I'm not saying that. That's a different thing. But, so my thought, even going back to like having the house and the cars and the mountain property and whatever, I wish I would have had 4 rental properties that were paying for all of that now instead of me paying for all of that.
More mailbox money.
Yeah. And so, what's your thoughts on that? Have you had any, cause that was a big change for me.
Yeah.
Like I said, my son he'll be 3 in a couple months. Yeah. And about a year and a half ago that like hit me like a freaking brick wall.
Yeah. It's interesting you asked me that because with my dad passing, he had a pretty intense estate plan that, we had to digest as a family and kind of go through, and he had trustees that managed that and all that stuff. And so, he built up an empire that not so much, he doesn't have it set up to pass on the business so much to his kids unless they want to work in it long enough to, work their way up into it.
Okay.
But it's more of an estate to where it almost acts as its own living, breathing organism, LLC, right? So I don't hope I can talk about this. I think I can, but he's got it set up. And I think it's pretty common for most people, so I think it's fine to talk about. But if you want to take a loan, he's got certain parameters where it's like, hey, if you're this age, then you can take out a loan for your first home and I'll be the bank for that, or the trust will be the bank for that. Right?
Yeah.
Or if you want to start a business, I will fund X at the age of X. And then when you get to this age, so it gives them kind of opportunities to take advantage of without just handing it to them. And he set it up very smart. My dad was not about just giving anything away. So seeing how he set up this it's actually been pretty impressive. And he used an attorney in Las Vegas who's just dynamite and really, really good. Anyways, going through his estate plan, getting some insight on that has been good for me because now I'm setting up my estate plan for my kid that I just had and being able to have, he's probably spent tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars getting his to where it's at. And now I get to kind of just see a glimpse of a good put together one. So I've been setting one up for my son, and I'm going to do something similar where it's like, I'll give him opportunities along the way to help him to make sure he's okay and has the opportunity where he needs it. But I'm not going to just give him, a lump sum when he's 18 or 25 or however a lot of people do it, where they just kind of piss it away. I've seen a lot of trust fund kids that get that lump sum.
Yeah, I like that.
They know that that's coming. So why would they prepare? Why would they take risks in life?
Just got to get to 25.
Yeah. And so what do they do till they're 25? Nothing.
Yeah.
They don't do shit with their life. And so I think it's important to just give them the opportunity to have, maybe a one up than the average kid out there, but make them still work for it. I don't want my kid to be, that pretentious kid that is just trust fund spoon fed. I know those people out there, and they're my worst. They're the worst people out there, in my opinion.
Dude, so that's how we're set up. We're pretty much, like we have it to where our siblings, my wife and I, our siblings take control. Like if Amanda and I both die,
right?
They take control of they're the trustees, and William, he doesn't have access himself until he's 25. I think is how we have it. So it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
But dude, I've never thought about that, because then it's like, that's how I would have acted if I was still here. Right.
Yeah. If they know about it and they know they don't have to, they just have to kind of
sorry, Will.
Skirt by.
Blame Marcus and Grandpa Sam.
Yeah. Gonna make you have to work for it. I think it's important, man. Like you gotta, do hard things and go through hard lives and experiences and learn how to survive on your own, your own feet. And then if you get to 30 or whatever that age is, and now you get, maybe a 2% loan on your first house versus a freaking 7% or 8% loan, whatever it is at his age, like what a huge advantage that is. And he might, that might be something that can propel him to do other stuff. That's kind of how I want to set it up too.
Dude, that changes my thought of like generational.
Yeah. And the way my dad set it up is it's not even free money. Like if you borrow money from the trust to buy a car or build your first home or start a business, you have to pay it back in interest. And it's termed, it's got its own whole set of rules, and it's all laid out in there. And it's impressive. He was very business oriented, numbers oriented.
Dude, I love that.
It's thick.
I love that.
Yeah. It's awesome. So
I might have to
when I get mine done, like I'll show it to you if you want. Maybe we can grab some lunch, and I'm using the same attorney that he used.
Oh, great.
To kind of set that up.
I was gonna say, you're probably sitting there with the attorney and they're like, bro, like you've done some research, and you're like, no, this is just how I'm structured.
Yeah, they already know. They're well in tune with all that. And so, I'm not going to have the same posterity that my dad is. I'm not even going to be close to that, but it's, 50 generations from now, at least it's set up the same way.
Yeah. No, dude, I mean, that's what I've really focused on it, and that's where that year and a half ago came from, is like generational. Yeah. Like cool. Like Amanda and I, dude, I could sell half of what I'm doing. She could go to part-time, and like, we'll be fine. Yeah. Like we'd be all right the next 50 years, and we'd be good. And I've actually had friends tell me like, dude, you guys are doing too much. Like, Will's gonna be fine. Like you guys are putting too much thought into this. And I'm like, dude, like what else am I supposed to be doing?
Do it while you're young, man. While you have the bandwidth, just go out and crush it like you guys are. Just kill it while you can. I think that like, you never know, you could die young like my dad did. And like, you're going to wish you crushed it when you could. And I think I'll never fully retire. It's like your grandpa, you talked about all these times you tried to retire and got back into it. That's kind of how I am. Like I can't sit still. Like I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I am like, hit the ground running, no coffee, just boom, let's go.
Well, it's funny, dude. I'll shout out Ethan. He's sitting in the other room listening to us. We went to lunch today and he was kind of talking to me about that. And he's like, so what's the win? Mm-hmm. Like in working, business, income, like what's the win? I'm like, dude, I don't think I'll ever stop.
Yeah.
You know,
It's because
like,
the mentality you've generated over the years, you know, like it's never going to stop. It doesn't just turn off.
Yeah.
Like, my brain doesn't turn off on Saturday. I don't like sleep in on Saturday or Sunday. I wake up at 6 on Saturday or Sunday still. It's the consistency of putting yourself through that. And how do you just turn that off at 50?
yeah.
It's impossible, right? I plan on like retiring, you know, part-time retiring, maybe doing like 20 hours a week in my office and running whatever development I'm doing at the time. But
Yeah. And if you guys want to go fly out to Cozumel, you go.
Right. But my idea of retirement is very different from others because I've seen my dad, how he was doing it, and I'm just not built that way. I don't think I could just sit on my ass and
Yeah. I don't know.
be retired.
It's the same, dude. But I think that, so like to answer Ethan's question, like my ultimate win is like, dude, I'm nose diving into real estate stuff right now.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it's
the best way to beat inflation, man. So I'm glad you are. I mean, as painful as that process can be and is, like, it's one of the best ways to beat inflation.
Yeah. And we have one short-term rental, and I mean, we'll do more in the future, but first of all, I want to retire Amanda. I want to retire my mom.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm like, dude, let's get 5, 6, 7 short-term rentals.
Yeah. Mailbox
Worldwide, nationwide, whatever, wherever we want.
Yeah,
and let's chase the weather,
and
dude.
Scale that and get someone who's managing that and is doing all the hard stuff, and you're the one just putting down the money,
right?
And start rolling that. And you'll find out here pretty quick that like once you get a couple properties and pay them off, then like now you got you got tax strategies to try to kind of roll that income and that money you're making, and so you don't get.
Well, and Amanda's a traveler, like she's a traveler, so I'm like, let's do that. And then we'll go stay 2 months in Montana cabin, and then we'll go stay 3 months in Florida.
That's in your blood. And then that's where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
See it.
And so I'm like
shooting bears off your back.
So I'm like, dude, I think that would be the ultimate win to me. Because like to me, like that would be freedom.
Yeah.
Like we want to leave. You want to go. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking 30 years down the road, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe William's kid's in a play in St. George, and we're in Florida, and we jump on a plane and fly to St. George for the night. And then we go to Washington State to what, you know what I mean? Just like wherever we want to go. We have homes everywhere we want to be.
Ethan, you taking notes?
Dude,
this is it.
Dude,
I mean, you're describing what he's asking. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if you realize it, but like that is the freedom that he's asking about. Yeah, it sucks to get there, and he's going to have to embrace the suck and grind, how long you and Amanda have been doing it and longer, you guys are in the thick of it.
Well, and having that partner that's in on it. I mean, dude,
you got Amanda, a double-edged sword. It's awesome.
She trusts me way more than she probably should. I mean, like I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, dude. I mean, I'm putting time into, I'm on Zooms. I'm paying for coaching. I'm doing all this stuff too, but I mean, she's just like, dude, can we afford it? Is this the right route,
bro?
Yeah.
I mean, she sees how much you're investing in yourself, and she's investing in you.
Yeah.
So her money's safe because she knows that you're putting just as much time and investment into it.
Well, again, to ask me in 20 years, I'll tell you where our short-term rentals are.
Right. Hey, man, we might be rubbing elbows under the bridge. Yeah. Like, I try to always keep that in my mind. Like, dude, and I love that episode you did with Ryan because like, there's so many ways to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never going to say this is the way to do it. Like, if I give business advice, it's like, this is how I did it. And I'm a total screw up. And like, if you figure out a better way to do it, great. Come talk to me when you figure it out. But this is how I did it. And there's way better ways of doing it. Like I learned everything the hard way, like school of hard knocks to the core. And I have to learn the hard lesson to really like have it sink in and learn what I needed to from it. So that Ryan really struck home with me when he's kind of describing that, the first of that podcast. It's like, yeah, dude, that is spot on.
Right.
Dude,
isn't that crazy? Like to think about the podcast, it's like, dude, it's just people we're bringing on, man.
Dude. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I want to meet him. He's like, that's a pretty interesting life he's had. And like his outlook on like coming out of that and where he's at now and his mentality is like, that's great to see that curve,
Right.
Like to go from where he was to now mentally is like, that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. We're 2 hours in, so we'll wrap it up, dude.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
I brought you
I forgot. Yeah. I forgot. He was down there hiding.
Bring out the Yeti core. So I mentioned that I raised beef growing up, but this is some family-owned.
Oh my gosh.
Wagyu. So this is Wagyu.
Seriously.
Japanese Black Angus. So I want you to take that home and try that out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know you're a big hunter and
there's nothing
guy.
nothing that gets me more jacked than,
man.
Grilling up some meat, dude, or smoking some meat.
Let me know how you like it. I can get you some.
Dude, I appreciate it.
Yeah, if you end up, this is how you cook it. You ready?
Okay.
No seasoning.
Okay.
Just put some butter on it and a little rosemary. You don't need salt and pepper. The marbling in that, the fat in that
I can see
all
it.
the seasoning you need.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's killer.
Dude,
you'll love it.
You're the man.
Yeah, man.
You did some research. So he brought me Mountain Dew and steak.
That's right.
I don't know who the next guest is, but you've got a high bar now.
Step it up, man.
All right, dude. We'll wrap it up. I really appreciate you coming, dude. It's been fun. Like I said, this is the most I've talked to you.
Yeah.
And we've known each other for years. So
I know. I feel bad for a lot of people I work with. A lot of the guys that work for me, it's like they see me in work mode, and I'm just pure efficiency. Just like say as little as possible, get shit done. And like I feel bad because so many of them are amazing people, and they kind of want to hang out with me outside of work because they know that I'm a totally different person. And it's like, man, I need to make that. I need to make the time for them for that. So I'm glad I got this opportunity and appreciate you having me.
For sure, man. You own episode 104, the Derick Lake Podcast.
Stamp it.
All right, guys. I know you love that. If you're still with us, I appreciate you. Go like, comment, go follow Marcus. If you're looking for custom home builds, Atlas Homes.
Atlas Built Homes. Yeah.
Atlas Built Homes. Appreciate you taking the time, dude. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks for loaning him to me for a couple hours. And we'll see you guys next week.